So is it possible that Nolan Arenado could still end up being traded to the Houston Astros after all? One report from Saturday seems to think that's the case. What's going on, everyone? Welcome into this edition of b-schaeff Daily. Brenden Schaeffer with you. It is Saturday evening, February 22nd, 2025. All right, here's the deal, Cardinals fans. I am upset tonight because my Mizzou Tigers just lost to Arkansas. Some of you out there in Cardinal land might be Arkansas basketball fans instead of Mizzou fans or Illinois fans or whatever else. I know the Illinois fans are feeling sad tonight too. But because of college basketball, I'm feeling sad. I'm feeling down on my luck. So we're not going to spend too terribly long tonight talking about the St. Louis Cardinals. Frankly, I've got to go to sleep. I just finished doing a bunch of shows over the past couple of days, and I just need to get to bed. So here's the deal. We're going to cut to the chase and talk Nolan Arenado tonight on the show, b-schaeff Daily, because John Denton and some of the other reporters from MLB.com have a new report out that apparently the talks with the Houston Astros are activated. They're back in focus as the Cardinals could potentially send Nolan Arenado to Houston. Some of the other reports out from tonight said, yeah, maybe, but there's still a long way to go in terms of getting a deal done between the Cardinals and the Astros. Let's just talk about it, though. The possibility that the trade talks with the Houston Astros are not completely dead in the water just yet. So it gets a little bit difficult because the Cardinals also played a game on Saturday. The Marlins defeated St. Louis 7-6 at Roger Dean Stadium. Cardinals were technically the road team in that game. They scored 6 runs. Marlins came back, scored the touchdown in the extra point to beat the Cardinals on Saturday. But the result of the game just doesn't matter. Honestly, the most interesting thing to happen from that game was Lars Nootbaar becoming the first recorded challenge of the season, or the Grapefruit League season anyway, for the Cardinals, and he won. And then Ryan Fernandez and Ivan Herrera on the other side of the equation as the battery ended up winning a challenge an inning or two later. But that's really, there was just not a lot to take away from the game itself, because in the middle of the game came the John Denton report that, hey, this Astros thing is maybe still pending. There's a chance. I'll read from the article from MLB.com, which was John Denton, Mark Feinsand, as well as Brian McTaggart, who covers the Astros. The Astros have renewed interest in trading for Cardinals third baseman Nolan Arenado. Multiple sources told MLB.com on Saturday, Arenado, who nixed a trade to the Astros in December, could now be willing to waive his no-trade clause and join a Houston team that has since added Christian Walker to play first base, a move which hadn't been made when Arenado vetoed the trade, and shows the Astros plan to push forward as contenders. That's a report from MLB.com. The Athletic, including Chandler Rome and Katie Woo, a number of hours later, quoted this, and this is from their story. Although the Astros re-engaged in brief trade discussions with the Cardinals regarding third baseman Nolan Arenado, multiple sources said that no deal is gaining traction, nor has Arenado's thought process changed for now about approving a trade to the Astros. And Katie evidently got John Mozeliak on the record. Quote, I don't feel anything is imminent. I can't comment or chase every rumor. That was per the article with The Athletic, the quote being John Mozeliak's from Saturday afternoon. I know that there wasn't a lot of interest from Mo in commenting on the record during the game. The MLB.com report talking about maybe a renewed willingness for Arenado to accept a trade, change his stance on the no-trade clause, which, again, he blocked it to Houston back in December. So the thought process being, let's walk ourselves through this here a little bit. Arenado originally, according to Katie Woo's reporting from earlier this week, had the Astros on his list of 5 teams to which he would accept a trade. Mid-December, John Mozeliak and the Astros get a trade done for Arenado. They present Arenado with the trade and say, hey, you're the final sign-off on this deal. You say it goes and it happens. He says, can I have the weekend? Again, this is per the Athletic report from earlier this week. John Mozeliak says, sure. Monday comes. He's still not sold on it. The deal dies because he has to reject it at that point. The Astros move on. They sign Christian Walker. Keep in mind, this was a handful of days after the Astros had traded away outfielder Kyle Tucker to the Cubs. So Arenado has the Astros on his original list. The Tucker trade happens. The Arenado trade is fulfilled. They're ready to do it. But Arenado's like, wait a minute. Y'all just traded away Kyle Tucker. How do I know you're not any different than what the Cardinals are planning to do, which is basically kind of resetting, transitioning, not competing at the fullest level in 2025, which is really all that matters to Arenado, and rightfully so. He's entering his mid-30s. He's ready to win a championship. If he's going to leave St. Louis, it's going to be for somewhere that he believes he's got a better chance to do exactly that. Now, I read from the MLB.com report here that says, hey, by adding Christian Walker, potentially that renews Arenado's interest in the Astros, because without Kyle Tucker, he was not so sure. And then they spend more money on a Christian Walker. Now, he's a first baseman. Arenado could conceivably play third. You've got Altuve. They've talked about moving him to left field. Bregman is out the door to Boston. Maybe Isaac Paredes plays second. Like, there's a way that it could work out, conceivably. Back in December, the Cardinals were going to send $15 to $20 million to the Astros as part of the contract, part of the trade to pay down the contract. And now the question would be, like, how much would that remain the same, potentially, if the Astros were to dip their toes back into these waters? From my perspective, if you're wondering, Cardinals fans, I don't see any reason that the Cardinals would have more leverage now than they did back in December. If anything, it's going to be less. Which, to me, if you're John Mozeliak, would mean they're not doing this deal. There's no reason, now that this thing has already come full circle, and you've sort of had to eat dirt about this contract situation and this trade situation already, why would you subject yourself, go back into this situation, wade into the muck, and allow yourself to potentially be kind of had once again? If Arenado doesn't want the trade for a second time, and according to the report from The Athletic from Saturday, his thinking has not changed. So I think this might be something that doesn't proceed forward. I've been wrong about this before, but really I've been just kind of reading the reports as they come out. I did not talk to Arenado today. All right? Not going to pretend I did. Didn't talk to John Mozeliak today. It's one of those things where, how desperate are the Cardinals to move on? How desperate is Arenado to move on? We can understand that the Cardinals tried all offseason to do it. But now over the past several days, as we've known Arenado is still in camp, and it sort of is what it is from a perspective of, okay, sure, they're going to be blocking Nolan Gorman. They're going to be blocking Burleson a little bit. The very first moment that there's an injury to a Cardinal position player, Burleson's back in your lineup. Unless that position player is Ivan Herrera or Mason Wynn, Burleson's back in your lineup. Walker's still in there every day. Gorman's still in there every day. The positions would change. But unless it's one of those two injuries, any of the other 7 guys get hurt, Burleson's in. And like we've seen it happen before, that we come into even into a Grapefruit League play sort of slate, and we see an injury or 2 or 3 happen, and what we thought was going to be the case in mid-February turns out, no, there's plenty of opportunity to go around. So I don't think this is a situation where the Cardinals are or should be overly desperate to clear the deck. As much as I think it would really match with the offseason expectations and the way they framed it in the public eye, having Arenado on your team is better than not having him on your team. So if you're not gaining anything other than the runway, I'm okay with the Cardinals right now playing hard to get a little bit. Because if the Cardinals are motivated to move Arenado, so be it. What's the motivation of the Astros? They were willing to take on $50 million plus the first time around back in December. That was over 2 months ago. Are they still willing? Because they traded away Kyle Tucker in his last year of arbitration eligibility, making $20 million plus. I think that's what the contract ended up to be. It was in that neighborhood, maybe a little bit below $20 million. But part of that was, I think, financially motivated for the Astros to trade away Kyle Tucker so that they didn't have to deal with his salary for 2025. and then they thought the Arenado thing was going to fall into their laps. It basically did. There was one little caveat. Arenado said no. So then what happened? Well, they signed Christian Walker to a 3-year, $60 million contract. Presumably the money that they were comfortable paying to Arenado went to Christian Walker. Because they had Isaac Paredes, they could put him at first, they could put him at third, they could put him at second. They could do a number of things, but when they signed Walker, it seemed like the Arenado door had probably been closed because financially they felt they had to move away from Kyle Tucker before they could even bring in Arenado, which ended up turning into Christian Walker. Maybe we're reading this wrong and the Astros still have payroll flexibility, or maybe they're just trying to take advantage of a Cardinals team that conceivably could have grown a little bit more desperate, realizing that the Astros might be the only shot to unload Arenado. Who within the Cardinals, though? Because when we keep saying the Cardinals, or they do this, or he does that, who are we talking about? Because if we say they, at this point, we might need to kind of separate it out between John Mozeliak, Chaim Bloom, Cardinal ownership, because all three of those are different entities. Historically, those interests have been aligned. Mozeliak and the front office have been aligned. Mozeliak and the ownership group have been aligned. Are Mozeliak and Chaim Bloom right now aligned? I think there's synergy within the organization, but it's interesting to wonder, like, would Chaim Bloom be running things exactly the same way as Mo this offseason if he were in charge and there wasn't that sort of division of labor or that division of responsibilities? Hard to say, but I think it's not as interesting as the idea that either of those groups would have been having to answer to ownership, which is where the financial implications of all of this comes down, and to me is still the most important part, probably driving the bus, which is why I don't see why the Cardinals would now turn back and trade Arenado to the Astros, because I cannot imagine that the Cardinals are going to have more leverage now than they did 2 months ago when the Astros were set to take on, according to reports, more than $50 million in present and future Arenado salaries. If you're the Cardinals, yes, it would have been nice to clear the deck a little bit, but we, I think, had long ago accepted the notion that you're probably not getting a lot in the way of prospect capital in an Arenado trade. Like, you're not getting any organization's top prospect. The Cardinals are the group that's kind of moving toward this deal and trying to make it happen. Other teams are either willingly or reluctantly, in some cases, going, okay, we'll talk about Arenado again. Like, that's the way it feels. Correct me if I'm wrong. Would love to have somebody correct me and give me the information on this trade. But that's sort of the way that it looks to me. And I just cannot imagine with Arenado having shown up to camp. And look, I don't think this is a case where, Arenado's gotten to camp and now he's so desperate to leave that here come these trade talks again. No, I mean, The Athletic is reported, and The Athletic, I think, would have reason to know that Arenado has not really changed his tune on a potential trade. He was hesitant in December with Houston, and conceivably, I would trust that he'd be hesitant now. If you're John Mozeliak, on the other side of that, Houston might have interest. I wouldn't doubt that there have been conversations within the last handful of days. If you're John Mozeliak, unless I know for sure that Nolan Arenado is accepting a trade, I don't have a thing to talk about. I don't care who the reporter is. I'm not saying a word that isn't just completely PR approved nothing burgers at this point. Because what benefit does it serve for Mozeliak to talk about this, for Arenado's side publicly to talk about this? If it happens, it happens. And look, I think Houston, other than, I still point back to the Dodgers, and this is not based on anything that anybody has told me, because by all accounts, the Dodgers are perfectly content to have Max Muncy be their third baseman. I just look at them, and they're kind of the never-ending money pit. And so if any team was to swoop in at the last moment and find a way to make the finances of it work, to me, it's still the Dodgers. Houston, after signing Christian Walker, I just don't really know why they would be extra motivated to take on the level of finances and the level of salary that they had agreed to take on back in December, according to reports. But even if they were willing to re-engage with the Cardinals, I would think it would be on a lesser deal for St. Louis. And we've already talked about the fact that, look, if a deal happens at this point, the Cardinals are probably on the bad end of it because it's Arenado getting what he wants. He would win. the team that gets him would win, especially if it's a ballpark like the Houston ballpark where Arenado's probably going to hit more home runs. He's going to have more success offensively. It's going to be a better situation, almost regardless of where you go. Sometimes the fresh slate concept ends up benefiting a player. I think those are the beneficiaries of any Arenado trade at this point. You know who would lose is the Cardinals, because they're not getting a great prospect in return. They're not probably getting the same financial relief that they would have gotten 2 months ago. And they're giving up on a player who's conceivably ready to have a bounce-back season. It would be nice to have Gorman at third, Donnie at second, Burleson at DH, and everybody be able to find their way. Because, look, I think Oliver Marmol wants Michael Ciani to be the center fielder. And I agree with him. I think he should be the center fielder. I wouldn't put Lars Nootbaar there. I'd put him in left. I wouldn't put Burleson in my outfield. I'd DH him. But because you have Arenado still, there are some trickle-down aspects of that you have to pay attention to. So, yeah, if you're the Cardinals, it would be nice from that perspective to be able to slot everybody in at full strength, at full health, where they're supposed to go. But if I'm being honest, I see right now the likelihood that the Cardinals have a couple of injuries that happen throughout the early portion of the season to where all the guys that they want to get at bats for, and again, I'm going out on a limb. You can let me know in the comments if you disagree. I think they're going to find the at bats for these guys. And rather than take ostensibly a bad deal to send Arenado away, where you're probably getting less financial relief than you would have in December with this Houston deal, you're still not probably getting any additional prospects back in return, all in the name of trying to clear the deck for some of these younger players that, when push comes to shove, I think are going to end up getting some opportunity to play in St. Louis anyway. And if you have Arenado, you win more games while you do it, and you have a little bit more depth. I'm okay with Arenado sticking around. In fact, I think if I'm a Cardinal fan, it's my preference. Let me know if you agree. Let me know if you disagree. It may all be a moot point because, again, if Arenado has not actually changed his tune on a trade to the Houston Astros, then one's not going to be facilitated. And we've got reports today that say, hey, yeah, maybe he's interested more so than he was a couple of months ago. That Athletic report that came out said, yeah, there's really no indication that Arenado has changed his tone. And if that's the case, he's going to be with the Cardinals. And that, for whatever it's worth at this point, is what I expect. I'm going down with that ship because if he does end up getting traded, I will believe it the moment that the deal is announced or widely reported that it's done. Until then, it's all just kind of speculative, in my opinion. So let me know if you agree. Let me know if you disagree. Let me know what other kind of Cardinal content you want coming your way. Sunday will be my last day at Cardinals camp. I'm covering the game. I'm beginning to drive home on Monday, so it'll be maybe a little bit lighter from a content perspective. Maybe I can put some stuff in the can to be able to post to the YouTube channel on Monday and Tuesday. But you guys have helped me to facilitate another year down at Cardinals spring training. We didn't really get the sponsorships that we were hoping for this year, but, you know, that happens. There have been some awesome folks that have helped me out to be able to make this happen with supporting the channel, supporting the YouTube membership, and everything like that. So thank you guys so much for your support. Even just listening is enough to ensure that I am continuing to make it worthwhile to do these videos, to do these podcasts. I'm going to make it my goal for y'all to do one every single day this summer. It won't happen. Inevitably, I'll have a vacation or I'll have a family situation come up. But look, this podcast tonight, 20 minutes. You know, that's kind of what we're talking about, just to be able to check in with Cardinal Nation as often as possible. I hope you guys enjoy it. I hope you appreciate it. I hope you let me know. I hope I get your feedback on, hey, tonight I want you to talk about X, Y, and Z. And you may just be surprised at the number of times that I'm able to do exactly that and talk about what you guys want to talk about. I did get some questions about YouTube in terms of going live. Will I have YouTube Lives this year? Yeah, I absolutely will. But for right now, make sure you guys are locked on Sports Hub STL because I'm putting a lot of energy into trying to help that organization start things up with all their sports coverage, whether it's been Cardinals, Mizzou, whatever else. Appreciate you guys throwing some of your weight behind supporting that venture because that's a big part of what I'm hoping to do in 2025. So I've taken enough of your time for this evening. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll talk to you next time on B-Schaeff Daily. Peace.